RoboCop Business Head Office, BO. This article is about the 1987 film. For other uses, see RoboCop, disambiguation. RoboCop. RoboCop, 1987, theatrical poster.jpg. Theatrical release poster. Directed by Paul Verhoeven. Written by Edward Neumeier. Michael Miner. Produced by Arne Schmidt. Starring Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, Daniel Herlihy, Ronnie Cox, Kurtwood Smith, Miguel Ferrer. Cinematography Jost Vacano. Edited by Frank J. Uriosti. Music by Basil Poldouris. Production company Orion Pictures. Distributed by Orion Pictures. Release date July 17, 1987. Running time 102 minutes. Country United States. Language English. Budget $13.7 million. Box office $53.4 million. RoboCop is a 1987 American science fiction action film directed by Paul Verhoeven and written by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner. The film stars Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, Daniel Herlihy, Ronnie Cox, Kurtwood Smith, and Miguel Ferrer. Set in a crime-ridden Detroit, Michigan, in the near future, RoboCop centers on police officer Alex Murphy, Weller, who is murdered by a gang of criminals and subsequently revived by the megacorporation Omni Consumer Products as the cyborg law enforcer RoboCop. Unaware of his former life, RoboCop executes a brutal campaign against crime while coming to terms with the lingering fragments of his humanity. The film was conceived by Neumeier while working on the set of Blade Runner, 1982, and he developed the idea further with Miner. Their script was purchased in early 1985 by producer John Davison on behalf of Orion Pictures. Finding a director proved difficult. Verhoeven dismissed the script twice because he did not understand its satirical content until convinced of it by his wife. Filming took place between August and October 1986, mainly in Dallas, Texas. Rob Bottin led the special effects team in creating practical effects, violent gore, and the RoboCop costume. Verhoeven emphasized violence throughout the film, making it so outlandish it became comical. Even so, censors believed it was too extreme, and several scenes were shortened or modified to secure an acceptable theatrical rating. Despite predicted difficulties in marketing the film, particularly because of its title, the film was expected to perform well based on pre-release critic screenings and positive word of mouth. RoboCop was a surprise financial success upon its release in July 1987, earning $53.4 million. Reviews praised the film as a clever action film with deeper philosophical messages and satire but were more conflicted over the extreme violence throughout. The film was nominated for several awards, and received an Academy Award and numerous Saturn Awards. The success of RoboCop created a franchise comprising the sequels RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3, children's animated series, multiple live-action television shows, video games, comic books, toys, clothing, and other merchandise. A reboot, also called RoboCop, was released in 2014. A direct sequel to the original 1987 film, tentatively titled RoboCop Returns, is in development as of 2020. It ignores other entries in the series. Since its release, the film has been analyzed for themes including the nature of humanity, personal identity, corporate greed, and corruption, and is seen as a rebuke of the policies of Ronald Reagan. Contents: 1 plot, 2 cast, 3 production, 3.1 conception and writing, 3.2 development, 3.3 casting, 3.4 filming, 3.5 post-production and music, 4 special effects and design, 4.1 special effects, 4.2 RoboCop, 4.3 ED209, 4.4 Cars, 4.5 Mad Effects, 5 Release. 5.1 Context. 5.2 Marketing. 5.3 Box Office. 6 Reception. 6.1 Critical Response. 6.2 Accolades. 7 Post-release. 7.1 Home media. 7.2 Other media. 8 Thematic analysis. 8.1 Corporate power. 8.2 Masculinity and authority. 8.3 Humanity and death. 9 Legacy. 9.1 Modern reception. 9.2 Cultural impact. 10 Sequels and adaptations. 11 Notes. 12 References. 12.1 Citations. 12.2 Works cited. 13 External links. Plot. In a near-future dystopia, Detroit is on the brink of societal and financial collapse. Overwhelmed by crime and dwindling resources, the city grants the mega-corporation Omni Consumer Products, OCP, control over the Detroit police force. OCP Senior President Dick Jones demonstrates ED-209, a law enforcement droid designed to supplant the police. ED-209 malfunctions and brutally kills an executive, allowing ambitious junior executive Bob Morton to introduce the chairman, the old man, to his own project, RoboCop. Meanwhile, Officer Alex Murphy is transferred to the Metro West Precinct. Murphy and his new partner Ann Lewis pursue notorious criminal Clarence Boddicker and his gang, Emil Antonovsky, Leon Nash, Joe Cox, Steve Min. They ambush and torture Murphy until Boddicker fatally shoots him. Morton has Murphy's corpse converted into RoboCop, a powerful and heavily armored cyborg with no memory of his former life. RoboCop has 3 prime directives: serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law. A 4th prime directive, Directive 4, is classified. RoboCop is hailed by the media for his brutally efficient campaign against crime. Lewis suspects he is Murphy, recognizing the unique way he holsters his gun. During maintenance, RoboCop experiences a nightmare of Murphy's death. He leaves the station and encounters Lewis, who addresses him as Murphy. While on patrol, RoboCop arrests Emil, who recognizes Murphy's mannerisms, furthering RoboCop's recall. RoboCop arrests Emil and uses the police database to identify his associates and review Murphy's police record. RoboCop recalls further memories while exploring Murphy's former home, his wife and son having moved away following his death. Elsewhere, Jones gets Boddicker to murder Morton, in revenge for Morton's attempting to usurp his position at OCP. RoboCop tracks down the Boddicker gang and a shootout occurs. He brutally assaults Boddicker, who confesses he works for Jones. RoboCop attempts to kill Boddicker until his programming directs him to uphold the law. He attempts to arrest Jones at OCP Tower, but Directive 4, a fail-safe measure to neutralize RoboCop when acting against an OCP executive, is activated. Jones admits his culpability in Morton's death and releases an ED-209 to destroy RoboCop. Although he escapes, RoboCop is assaulted by the police force on OCP's order and is badly damaged. Lewis helps RoboCop escape to an abandoned steel mill to repair himself. Angered by OCP's underfunding and short staffing, the police force goes on strike, and Detroit descends into chaos as riots break out throughout the city. Jones frees Boddicker and his remaining gang, arming them with high-powered weaponry to destroy RoboCop. At the steel mill, Boddicker's men are quickly eliminated, but Lewis is badly injured and RoboCop becomes trapped under steel girders. Even so, he kills Boddicker by stabbing him in the throat with his data spike. RoboCop confronts Jones at OCP Tower during a board meeting, revealing the truth behind Morton's murder. Jones, in order to escape, takes the old man hostage but is promptly fired from OCP, thus nullifying Directive 4 and allowing RoboCop to shoot him. The old man compliments RoboCop and asks his name. RoboCop replies, "Murphy." Cast: a photograph of Peter Weller. A photograph of Ronnie Cox. A photograph of Kurtwood Smith. A photograph of Miguel Ferrer. Left to right, Peter Weller, pictured in 2016, Ronnie Cox, 2019, Kurtwood Smith, 2010, and Miguel Ferrer, 2015. Peter Weller as Alex Murphy, RoboCop. A Detroit police officer murdered in the line of duty and revived as a cyborg. 1. Nancy Allen as Ann Lewis. A tough and loyal police officer. 2. Daniel O'Herlihy as the Old Man. The chief executive of OCP. 3. Ronnie Cox as Dick Jones. The senior president of OCP. 4. Kurtwood Smith as Clarence Boddicker. A crime lord in league with Dick Jones. 1. Miguel Ferrer as Bob Morton. An ambitious OCP junior executive responsible for the RoboCop project. 5-1. In addition to the main cast, RoboCop features Paul Mkran as Emil Antonovsky, Ray Wise as Leon Nash, Jesse D. Goins as Joe Cox, and Calvin Young as Steve Min, who are members of Boddicker's gang. The cast also includes Robert Dookie as Sergeant Reed, 6-7, Michael Gregory as Lieutenant Hedgecock, Felton Perry as OCP employee Donald Johnson, Kevin Page as OCP junior executive Mr. Kinney, who is shot to death by ED 209, and Lita Brooks as cocaine warehouse owner Sal. 876, Mario Machado and Lisa Gibbons portray, respectively, news hosts Casey Wong and Jess Perkins, 6-7, and television show host Bixby Snyder is played by S.D. Namath. 6-9, Angie Ballings and Jason Levine appear as Murphy's wife and son, respectively. 6. RoboCop director Paul Verhoeven has a cameo as a dancing nightclub patron. 10-11, producer John Davison provides the voice of ED 209. 5. And director John Lantis has a cameo in an in-film advert. 6. Smith's partner Joan Perkle appears as Dick Jones's secretary. 10. Production. Conception and writing. A photograph of Edward Neumeier. Writer Edward Neumeier, pictured in 2007. Neumeier's interest in science fiction, and work on Blade Runner, 1982, inspired RoboCop. RoboCop was conceived in the early 1980s by Universal Pictures junior story executive and aspiring screenwriter Edward Neumeier. 12, 13, 14, 15, a fan of robots, science fiction films, such as Star Wars, and action films, Neumeier had developed an interest in mature comic books while researching them for potential adaptation. 16, 15, 12. The 1982 science fiction film Blade Runner was filming on the Warner Brothers lot behind Neumeier's office, and he unofficially joined the production to learn about filmmaking. 12, 14, 15. His work there gave him the idea for RoboCop. He said, "I had this vision of a far distant, Blade Runner-type world where there was an all-mechanical cop coming to a sense of real human intelligence." 12, 14. He spent the next few nights writing a 40-page outline. 12. While researching story submissions for Universal, Neumeier came across a student video by aspiring director Michael Miner. 13, 14, 10. The pair met and discussed their similar concepts, Neumeier's RoboCop and Miner's robot-themed rock music video. In a 2014 interview, Miner said he also had an idea called Super Cop. 10, 14, 12. The pair formed a working partnership and spent about 2 months discussing the idea, plus 2 to 3 months writing together at night and over weekends, outside their regular jobs. 17, 14, 12, 10. Their collaboration was initially difficult because they did not know each other well and had to learn how to constructively criticize each other. 18. As well as being inspired by comic books and his personal experience with corporate culture, Neumeier was influenced to kill off his main character early on by the psychological horror film Psycho, 1960, whose heroine was killed in the first act. 12, 16, 19. Neumayer wanted to satirize 1980s business culture, noting the increasing aggression of American financial services in response to growing Japanese influence, and that a popular book on Wall Street was The Book of Five Rings, a 17th-century text discussing how to kill more effectively. He also believed that Detroit's declining automobile industry was due to increased bureaucracy. ED 209's malfunction in the OCP boardroom was based on Neumeyer's office daydreams about a robot bursting into a meeting and killing everyone. 1219, Miner described the film as comic relief for a cynical time during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, when economist Milton Friedman and the Chicago Boys ransacked the world, enabled by Reagan and the Central Intelligence Agency. So when you have this cop who works for a corporation that insists I own you, and he still does the right thing, that's the core of the film. The in-film media breaks were Neumeyer's and Miner's idea. A spec script was completed by December 1984. 10. Development. A 2016 photograph of Paul Verhoeven. Director Paul Verhoeven, pictured in 2016. He rejected the RoboCop script twice before taking to its underlying story about a character losing their identity. The first draft of the script, then titled RoboCop, The Future of Law Enforcement, was given to industry friends and associates. 15/20/12-17, a month later, the pair had two offers, one from Atlantic Releasing 17, and one from director Jonathan Kaplan and producer John Davison with Orion Pictures. 1320, an experienced producer of exploitation films and B-movies, such as the parody film Airplane. 1980, Davison said he was drawn to the script's satire. 13/20/12, Davison showed Neumeyer and Miner films, including Madigan, 1968, Dirty Harry, 1971, and Mad Max 2, 1981 to demonstrate the tone he wanted. Orion greenlit the project, and Neumeyer and Miner began a second draft. 21. Davison produced the film via his Tabor Pictures company. 22/23, Neumeyer and Miner were paid a few $1,000s for the script rights and $25,000 between them for the rewrite. The pair were entitled to 8% of the producer profits once released. 17/24, Davison's contacts with puppeteers, animators, and practical effects designers were essential to Verhoeven, who had no prior experience with them. 13. Discussion was had between producers about changing the Detroit setting, but Neumeyer insisted on its importance because of its failing motor car industry. 12. A suggestion by Orion executives that was accepted was to have the connection between Clarence Boddicker and Dick Jones, who had no connection in the first script. 12. Kaplan left to direct Project X, 1987, and finding his replacement took 6 months. Many prospects declined because of the film's title. 21/25/26/12, the role was offered to David Cronenberg, Alex Cox, and Monty Hellman. Hellman joined as second unit director. 27/25/17, Miner petitioned to direct, but Orion refused to trust a $7 million project to an untested director. 28/12, Miner declined the second unit director position in order to direct Deadly Weapon, 1989. 21/12, Orion executive Barbara Boyle suggested Paul Verhoeven, who had received acclaim for his work on Soldier of Orange, 1977, and his only English-language film Flesh Plus Blood, 1985 for director. 21/12/13. Verhoeven is said to have looked at the first page and discarded the script, calling it a piece of shit, reports vary. 10/13, this rejection stalled the project. 21, Boyle sent Verhoeven another copy, suggesting he pay attention to the subtext. 12, Verhoeven was still uninterested, until his wife Martine read it and encouraged him to give it a chance, saying he had missed the soul of the story about someone losing their identity. 10. Being not fluent in English, Verhoeven admitted the satire did not make sense to him. 10. The scene that gained his attention was RoboCop returning to Murphy's abandoned home and experiencing lingering memories of his former life. 10-1. Davison, Neumeyer, and Verhoeven discussed the project at Culver Studios' Mansion House. 12. Verhoeven wanted to direct it as a serious film, and to explain the tone they wanted, Neumeyer gave him comic books, including 2000 AD, featuring the character Judge Dredd. 12-21, Neumeyer and Miner wrote a third draft based on Verhoeven's requests, working through injuries and late nights. This 92-page revision included a subplot involving a romantic affair between Murphy and Lewis. 12-21-11, after reading it, Verhoeven admitted he was wrong and returned to the second draft, looking for a comic book on film tone. 21-12-29. Casting. A 1955 photograph of actor Daniel O'Herlihy. Daniel O'Herlihy, pictured in 1955. His character, the Old Man, was based on MCA Incorporated executive Lou Wasserman. Around 6 to 8 months were spent searching for an actor to portray Alex Murphy/RoboCop. 26-13, Arnold Schwarzenegger, 13, Michael Ironside, 30, Rutger Hauer, Tom Berenger, Armand Assante, 25, Keith Carradine, and James Raymer were considered. 21, Orion favored Schwarzenegger, the star of their recent success, The Terminator, 1984, 25, but he and other actors were considered too physically imposing to be believable in the RoboCop costume. It was thought that Schwarzenegger would look like the Michelin Man or Pillsbury Doughboy. 13-30-26, others were reluctant because their face would be largely concealed by a helmet. 26, Davison said that Weller was the only person who wanted to be in the film. 26, his casting was also favored because he commanded a low salary and had an existing fan base in the science fiction genre, following his performance in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, 1984. 28, he also possessed good body control from martial arts training and marathon running, and Verhoeven said that his chin was very good. 26-25, Weller spent months working with Maimoni Yakim, developing a liquid movement style, with a stiff staccato ending, while wearing an American football uniform to approximate the finished costume. 31-10, Weller said working with Verhoeven was his main reason for choosing the role over appearing in King Kong Lives, 1986. 15-32. Stephanie Zimbalist was cast as Murphy's partner and Lewis but dropped out because of contractual obligations to Remington Steele, which had been cancelled in 1986, but was revived because of its popularity. 33-34-35-11, her replacement, Nancy Allen, thought the film's title was terrible but found the script engrossing. Allen was known for her long blonde hair, but Verhoeven wanted it cut short so the character was not sexualized. Her hair was cut shorter 8 times before the desired look was achieved. 36, Allen undertook police academy training for her role, and sought advice from her police lieutenant father. 36, Verhoeven encouraged her to act masculine and gain more weight. She accomplished the latter by giving up smoking. 11. Kurtwood Smith, Boddicker, auditioned for both Boddicker and Jones. He was known mainly for television work and had not experienced film success. He saw RoboCop as a B-movie with potential. 10. The character was scripted to wear glasses so that he would look like Nazi Party member Heinrich Himmler. Smith was unaware of this and interpreted it as the character portraying an intelligent and militaristic front to conceal being a sneering, smirking drug kingpin. 10. Ironside was offered the role but did not want to be involved with another special effects-laden film or portray a psychopath character after working on Extreme Prejudice, 1987. 30-25-37, Robert Picardo also auditioned for the role. 38. Ronnie Cox had been stereotyped as playing generally nice characters and said this left the impression that he could not play more masculine roles. 39. Verhoeven cast him as the villainous Dick Jones to play against type. 40. Cox said that playing a villain was about a gazillion times more fun than playing the good guys. 41. Jones, he said, has absolutely no compassion, he is an evil SOB. 39. Miguel Ferrer was unsure if the film would be successful, but he was desperate for work and would have taken any offer. 15. The Old Man was based on MCA Incorporated CEO Lou Wasserman, whom Neumeier considered to be a powerful and intimidating individual. 12. Television host Bixby Snyder was written as an Americanized version of British comedian Benny Hill, but without any restraint. 10. Radio personality Howard Stern was offered an unspecified role but turned it down because he believed the idea was stupid. He praised the finished film. 42. Filming. A photograph of the Dallas City Hall. Dallas City Hall appears as the exterior of OCP's headquarters. Matte paintings were used to make it appear taller. Principal photography began on August 6, 1986, on an $11 million budget. 43-44, cinematographer Jost Vacano previously worked with Verhoeven on Soldier of Orange. 44-22, Verhoeven wanted Blade Runner production designer Lawrence G. Paul, but Davison said he could afford either a great production designer or a great RoboCop costume but not both. 36-12, William Sandell was hired. 45, Monty Hellman directed several action scenes. 46. Filming took place almost entirely on location in Dallas, Texas. 47-10-44, with additional shooting on sets in Las Colinas, and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 8:48-44, Verhoeven wanted a modern filming location that looked like it was from the near future. 44, Detroit was dismissed because it had many low, featureless, and indistinct buildings. 26-44, Neumeier said it was also a trade union town, making it more expensive to film there. 49, Detroit does make a brief appearance in stock footage shown during the film's opening. 16, Chicago was dismissed for aesthetic reasons, New York City for high costs, and California because, according to Davison, Orion wanted to distance themselves from the project. 26-44, Dallas was chosen over Houston because it offered modern buildings as well as older, less maintained areas where they could use explosives. 44, the filming schedule in Dallas was 9 weeks, but it soon became clear it was going to take longer. Based on filmed footage, Orion approved extending the schedule and increasing the budget to $13.1 million. 43-31-50, the weather during filming fluctuated. The Dallas summer was often 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Celsius, to 115 degrees Fahrenheit, 46 degrees Celsius, 51-26-36. The weather in Pittsburgh was frigid. 10. RoboCop's costume was not finished until some time into filming. This did not impact the filming schedule, but it denied Weller the month of costume rehearsal he had expected. 10-26-25-52, Weller was immediately frustrated with the costume because it was too cumbersome for him to move as he had practiced. He spent hours trying to adapt. 10-52-25, he also struggled to see through the thin helmet visor and interact or grab objects while wearing the gloves. 52-53, he fell out with Verhoeven and was eventually fired, with Lance Henriksen considered as a replacement, but because the costume was built for Weller, he was encouraged to mend his relationship with Verhoeven. 25, Joachim helped Weller develop a slower, more deliberate movement style. 15, Weller's experience in the costume was worsened by warm weather, which caused him to sweat off up to 3 pounds, 1.4 kilograms, per day. 26-31, he began taking prescription medication to cope with stress-induced insomnia, which left him filming scenes under the influence. 54. Verhoeven often choreographed scenes alongside the actors before filming. 55-56, even so, improvisation was encouraged because he believed it could create interesting results. Smith improvised some of his characters' quirks, such as sticking his gum on his secretary's desk and spitting blood onto the police station counter. He recounted saying, "What if I spat blood on the desk?" Verhoeven got this little smile on his face, and we did it. 10. Neumeyer was on set throughout filming. He occasionally was inspired to write additional scenes, including a New Year's Eve party, after noticing some party hat props, and a news story about the Strategic Defense Initiative platform misfiring. 12-10-21, Verhoeven found Neumeyer's presence invaluable because they could discuss how to adapt the script or location to make a scene work. 44. A photograph of the Wheeling Pittsburgh steel mill. A steel mill in Pennsylvania served as the site of RoboCop's and Clarence Boddicker's final battle. Verhoeven gained a reputation for verbal aggression and unsociable behavior on set, although Smith said that Verhoeven never yelled at the actors but was too engrossed in filming to be sociable. 10. Cox and Allen both spoke fondly of Verhoeven. 57-36, Weller was to be referred to only as Murphy or Robo, and Smith was hesitant to speak to him as a result. However, they developed a friendship, and the rule was ignored. Weller spent his time between filming with the actors who played his enemies, including Smith, Ray Wise, and Calvin Young, who maintained healthy lifestyles that supported Weller in his training for the New York City Marathon. 15. Many locations in and around Dallas were used in the production. An office in Renaissance Tower was used for the interior of OCP, and the exterior is the Dallas City Hall, modified with matte paintings to look duller. 58-59-47-160, the OCP elevator was that of the Plaza of the Americas. 47-59, the Detroit Police Station is a combination of Crozier Tech High School, exterior, and the Sons of Herman Hall, interior, and the City Hall is the Dallas Municipal Building. 59, scenes of Boddicker's gang blowing up storefronts were filmed in the Deepham neighborhood. One explosion was larger than anticipated, and actors can be seen moving out of the way, Smith having to remove his coat because it was on fire and the actors involved receiving an additional $400 stunt pay. 44-10, the Shell gas station that explodes was located in the Arts District. 47-59, where locals unaware of the filming made calls to the fire department. 1. The scene was scripted for Flames to modify the sign to read Hell. Davison approved it, but it does not appear in the film. Miner called it a disappointing omission. 10. The nightclub is the former Stark Club. Verhoeven was filmed while demonstrating how the clubbers should dance and used the footage in the film. 11-10, other Dallas locations include Cesar Chavez Boulevard, the Reunion Arena, 59, and the Crescent Car Park. 49, the final battle between RoboCop and Boddicker's gang was filmed at a steel mill in Monessen, outside Pittsburgh. 61-1962-44, filming concluded in late October 1986. 63. Post-production and music. Rock shot by Basil Polderis, 023. Menu 0:00. The main theme of RoboCop by Basil Polderis. Performed by the Sinfonia of London, the score combines orchestral music with synthesizers. Problems playing this file? See Media Help. An additional $600,000 budget increase was approved by Orion for post-production and the music score, raising the budget to $13.7 million. 43-21-1350A, Frank J. Uriosti served as the film's editor. 64. Several pickup shots were filmed during this phase, including Murphy's death, RoboCop removing his helmet, and shots of his leg holster. 65. After the OCP boardroom scene in which RoboCop calls himself Murphy, a further scene revealed Lewis was alive in a hospital, before finally showing RoboCop on patrol. The latter scene lessened the triumphant feeling of the former and was removed. 66-67, Verhoeven wanted the in-film media breaks to abruptly interrupt the narrative and unsettle the viewer. He was influenced by Piet Mondrian's art that featured stark black lines separating colored squares. 10. Peter Connecticut directed many of the media breaks, except TJ Laser, which was directed by Neumeier. 68. RoboCop's violent content made it difficult to receive a desired theatrical R rating from the Motion Picture Association of America, IPAA. An R rating restricted a film to those over 17 unless accompanied by an adult. RoboCop initially received the restrictive X rating, meaning the film could be seen only by those over 17. 69-25-10, although some reports suggest it was refused an R rating 11 times. Verhoeven said the number was actually 8. 10-25. The MPA took issue with several scenes, including Murphy's death and ED 209 shooting an executive. 64-50, the violent scenes were shortened and media breaks were added to help lighten the mood. 25, the MPA also objected to a scene of a mutated Emil being disintegrated by Boddicker's car, but Verhoeven, Davison, and Orion refused to remove it because it consistently received the biggest laughs during test screenings. 1370, Verhoeven made the violence comical and surreal, and believed the cuts made the scenes appear more, not less, violent. 2510, he remarked that his young children laughed at the X-rated cut, and audiences laughed less at the R-rated version. 1050, Verhoeven said people love seeing violence and horrible things. 50, the film was released in the United Kingdom without cuts, the rating board there stating that the comic excess of the violence and the clear line between the hero and villains justified it. 71, the complete version of RoboCop runs for 103 minutes. 72. Basil Poledouris provided the film's score, having worked previously with Verhoeven on Flesh Plus Blood. 5. The score combines synthesizers and orchestral music, reflecting RoboCop's cyborg nature. The music was performed by the Sinfonia of London. 73-74. Special effects and design. Special effects. A behind-the-scenes photograph of actor Palmgren in a prosthetic costume depicting melting skin. Actor Palmgren as Emil Anatowski. Palmgren wore a prosthesis over his upper body to give the appearance of his skin melting. His death was the highest-rated scene by test audiences. 70. The special effects team, led by Rob Bottin, 53, included Phil Tippett, 13, Stefan Dupuis, Bart Mixon, 75, and Craig Davis, among others. 76. The effects were excessively violent because Verhoeven believed that made scenes funnier. 2510, he likened the brutality of Murphy's death to the crucifixion of Jesus, which offered an efficient method of engendering sympathy for Murphy because the audience did not get to know him well beforehand. 1064-70, the scene was filmed at an abandoned auto assembly plant in Long Beach, California, on a raised stage that allowed operators to control the effects from below. 77, to show Murphy being dismantled by gunfire, prosthetic arms were cast in alginate and filled with tubing that could pump artificial blood and compressed air. Attached to Weller's shoulders by Velcro, the left hand was manufactured to explode in a predictable way and was controlled by 3 operators. 77, the right arm was jerked away from Weller's body by a monofilament wire. 1977, a detailed, articulated replica of Weller's upper body was used to depict Boddicker shooting Murphy through the head. 77-78-70, a mold of Weller's face was made, using foam latex that was baked to make it rubbery and flesh-like and placed over a fiberglass skull containing a squib and explosive charge. The articulated head was controlled by 4 puppeteers and had details of sweat and blood. A fan motor attached to the body made it vibrate as if shaking with fear. The charge in the skull was connected by wire to the trigger of Smith's gun to synchronize the effect. 79. Emil's melting mutation was inspired by the 1977 science fiction film The Incredible Melting Man. 80. Bottin designed and fabricated Emil's prosthetics, creating a foam latex headpiece and matching gloves that gave the appearance of Emil's skin melting off his bones like marshmallow sauce. 80-81, a second piece depicting further degradation was applied over the first. Dupuy painted each piece differently to emphasize Emil's advancing degradation. The prosthetics were applied to an articulated dummy to show Emil being struck by Bodeker's car. The head was loosened so it would fly off, and by chance, it rolled onto the car's hood. The effect was completed with Emil's liquefied body, raw chicken, soup, and gravy, washing over the windscreen. 81. The same dummy stands in for Robocop when he is crushed by steel beams, painted wood. 81. Verhoeven wanted Robocop to kill Bodeker by stabbing him in the eye, but it was believed the effort to create the effect would be wasted because it would likely be censored. 82. Dick Jones's fatal fall is shown by a stop-motion puppet of Cox animated by Rocco Giaffer. The limited development time meant Giaffer used a foam rubber puppet with an aluminum skeleton, instead of a higher-quality articulated version. It was composited against Mark Sullivan's matte painting of the street below. 83-82, ED 209's murder of OCP executive Kevin Page was filmed over 3 days. Page's body was covered in 200 blood squibs, but Verhoeven was unhappy with the result and brought Page back months later to refilm it in a studio-built recreation of the boardroom. Page was covered in over 200 squibs, plus plastic bags filled with spaghetti squash and fake blood. Page described being in intense pain, as each squib detonation felt like being punched. 8. In the cocaine warehouse scene, Bodeker's stuntman was thrown through real glass panes rigged with detonating cord to shatter microseconds before he hit. 84. Gelatin capsules filled with sawdust and a sparkling compound were fired from an air gun at Robocop to create the appearance of ricocheting bullets. 85. Robocop. Main article, Robocop character. Botten was tasked with designing the Robocop costume. 1386-10, he researched the Star Wars character C-3PO, looking at its stiff costume, which made movement difficult. 86. Botten was also influenced by robot designs in Metropolis, 1927, and The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, 64-16, and comic book superheroes. 87-88, he developed around 50 different designs based on feedback from Verhoeven, who pushed for a more machine-like character. 89-87, Verhoeven admitted he had unrealistic expectations after reading Japanese science fiction mangas, and it took him too long to realize it, which contributed to the costume's delay. 10. The Robocop costume was unprecedented, and both design and construction exceeded cost and schedule. 44-26-78, it took 6 months to build, using flexible foam latex, semi or completely rigid polyurethane, and a fiberglass helmet. 90-87-26, moving sections were joined together with aluminum and ball bearings. 90, the entirety of the costume is supported by an internal harness of hooks, allowing for sustained movement during action-heavy scenes. 78, 7 costumes were made, including a fireproof version and costumes to convey sustained damage. 91, they weighed 25 to 80 pounds, 11 to 36 kilograms, reports vary. 92-26-93-94, Robocop's gun, the Auto 9, is a Beretta 93R with an extended barrel and larger grip. It was modified to fire blank bullets, and vents were cut into the side to allow for multi-directional muzzle flashes with every 3-shot burst. 95. ED 209. Main article, ED 209. A photograph of a miniature ED 209 model. One of the miniature ED 209 models used for animation by Phil Tippett, Rantel M. Dutra, and Harry Walton. To budget for its development, Tippett developed preliminary sketches of ED 209, and hired Davis to design the full-scale model, which was constructed with the help of Paul Lucchesi. 76. Verhoeven wanted ED 209 to look mean and believed Davis' early designs lacked a killer aesthetic. Davis was influenced by killer whales and a United States Air Force Corsair jet. He approached the design with modern American aesthetics and corporate design policy that he believed prioritized looks over functionality, including excessive and impractical components. He did not add eyes because they would make ED-209 more sympathetic. 96. The fully articulated fiberglass model took 4 months to build, cost $25,000, stood 7 feet, 2.1 meters, tall, and weighed 300 to 500 pounds, 140 to 230 kilograms. 97, 98, 99. The 100-hour workweeks took their toll, and Davis made ED-209's feet minimal in detail, as he did not think they would be shown on camera. 100. The model was later used on promotional tours. 101, 98, 99. Davis spent another 4 months building two 12 in, 30 cm, miniature replicas for stop-motion animation. 102. The two small models allowed scenes to be animated and filmed more efficiently, which saved time in completing the 55 shots needed in 3 months. 102. Tippett was the lead ED-209 animator, with Rantel M. Dutra and Harry Walden assisting. 103, 99, 13. Tippett conceived ED-209's movement as unanimal-like, as if it was constantly about to fall over before catching itself. 99. To complete the character, the droid was given the roar of a leopard. Davison provided a temporary voice-over for ED-209's speaking voice, which was retained in the film. 104. Cars. The police cars are 1986 Ford Taurus models painted black. 48. The vehicle featured a customized interior that would show graphical displays for mugshots, fingerprints, and other related information, but the concept was too ambitious. 1363. The 6000 Sux is an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme modified by Gene Winfield based on a design by Chip Foose. 2 working cars were made, plus a third, non-functional one that was used when the vehicle was shown to explode. 105. The 6000 Sux commercial features a plasticine dinosaur animated by Don Waller and blocked by Steve Chiodo. 105. Matte effects. RoboCop contains 7 matte effects painted mainly by Jaffer. Each matte was painted on masonite. Jaffer supervised on-site filming to mask the camera where the matte is inserted. He recounted having to crawl out from a 5-story high ledge to get the right shot of the Plaza of the Americas. 106. The burnished steel RoboCop logo was developed using special photographic effects that supervisor Peter Curran based on a black and white sketch from Orion. Curran created a scaled-up matte version and backlit it. A second pass was made with a sheet of aluminum behind it to create reflective detail. 63. RoboCop's vision was created using hundreds of ink lines on acetate composited over existing footage. Several attempts had to be made to get the line thickness right. At first, the lines would appear too thick or too thin. 107. Assuming thermographic photography would be expensive, Curran replicated thermal vision using actors in body stockings painted with thermal colors and filmed the scene with a polarized lens filter. 108. The OCP boardroom model of Delta City was made under the supervision of art director Gail Simon. 109. Release. Context. See also, 1987 in film. Industry experts were optimistic about the theatrical summer of 1987, June to September. 110. The season focused on genre films, science fiction, horror, and fantasy, that were proven to generate revenue if not industry respect. 111. Other films, such as Roxanne, Full Metal Jacket, and The Untouchables, were targeted at older audiences, those aged over 25, who had been ignored by the teenage-centric films of previous years. 112-113. The action comedy Beverly Hills Cop 2 was predicted to dominate the theaters. 110. But many other films were expected to perform well, including the action-adventure Ishtar, comedy films Harry and the Hendersons, Who's That Girl, Spaceballs, the action film Predator, and sequels such as Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and the latest James Bond film, The Living Daylights. 110-113. Along with the musical La Bamba, RoboCop was predicted to be a sleeper hit, 114-12, having received positive feedback before release, including both a positive industry screening, which was considered a rarity, and multiple pre-release screenings that demonstrated the studio's confidence in the film. 115-116. Marketing. An image of the RoboCop logo. The RoboCop logo used in the film. Marketing the film was considered difficult. 117. Writing for the Los Angeles Times, Jack Matthews described RoboCop as a terrible title for a movie that anyone would expect an adult to enjoy. Orion head of marketing Charles Glenn said it had a certain liability. It sounds like Robbie the Robot or Gabots or something else. It's nothing like that. 117. The campaign began 3 months before the film's release. 5,000 adult-oriented and family-friendly trailers were sent to theaters. Orion Promotions director Jan Keane said children and adults responded positively to the RoboCop character. 117. Miguel Ferrer recalled a theater audience unfavorably laughing at the trailer, which he found disheartening. 118. Models and actors in fiberglass RoboCop costumes made appearances in cities throughout North America. The character appeared at a motor racing event in Florida, a laser show in Boston, a subway in New York City, and children could take their picture with him at the Sherman Oaks Galleria in Los Angeles. 117. An incomplete version of the unrated film was screened early for critics, which was outside the norm for an action film. Glenn reasoned that critics who favored Verhoeven's earlier work would appreciate RoboCop. The feedback was generally positive, providing positive quotes for promotional material and making it one of the best-reviewed films of the year up to that point. 117. Verhoeven recalled how one reviewer was confused by the jarring in-film ad breaks and complained the projectionist had used the wrong film reel. 10. The week before release saw the introduction of television adverts and limited theatrical screenings for the public. 117. Box office. RoboCop began a wide North American release on July 17, 1987. 119-120. During its opening weekend, the film exceeded expectations by earning $8 million from 1,580 theaters, an average of $5,068 per theater. 121-122. It was the weekend's _1 film, ahead of a re-release of the 1937 animated film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, $7.5 million, and the horror sequel Jaws, The Revenge, $7.2 million, both of which were also in their first week of release. 121-123, RoboCop retained the #1 position in its second weekend with an additional gross of $6.3 million, ahead of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, $6.05 million, and the debuting comedy Summer School, $6 million. 124-125. In its third weekend, RoboCop was the fourth highest-grossing film with a gross of $4.7 million, behind La Bamba, $5.2 million, and the debuts of the horror film The Lost Boys, $5.2 million, and The Living Daylights, $11.1 million. 126. RoboCop never regained the #1 spot but remained in the top 10 for 6 weeks in total. 119-120. By the end of its theatrical run, the film had grossed about $53.4 million, becoming a modest success. 119-120-25B. This figure made it the year's 14th highest-grossing film, behind Crocodile Dundee, $53.6 million, La Bamba, $54.2 million, comedy film Dragnet, $57.4 million, Predator, $59.7 million, fantasy comedy The Witches of Eastwick, $63.8 million, action film Lethal Weapon, $65.2 million. Action comedy Stakeout, $65.7 million. The comedy films The Secret of My Success, $67 million, and Three Men and a Baby, $70.8 million. The Untouchables, $76.3 million. Fatal Attraction, $126 million. Platoon, $137 million, and Beverly Hills Cop 2, $153.7 million. 127. Figures are not available for the film's performance outside North America. 120-119. Due in part to higher ticket prices and an extra week of the theatrical summer, 112, 1987 set a record of $1.6 billion in box office gross, just exceeding the previous record of $1.58 billion record set in 1984. Unlike that earlier summer, which featured multiple blockbuster successes such as Ghostbusters and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the summer of 1987 delivered only one, Beverly Hills Cop 2. Even so, more films, including RoboCop, had performed modestly well, earning $274 million between them, a 50% increase over 1986. 128-113. The average audience age continued to increase, as teen-oriented films, such as RoboCop and Beverly Hills Cop 2, suffered a 22% drop in performance against similar 1986 films. Adult-oriented films saw a 39% increase in revenue. 128. RoboCop was one of the summer's surprise successes, and contributed to Orion's improving fortunes. 21-129. Reception. Critical response. RoboCop opened to generally positive reviews. 50-25, audience polls by CinemaScore reported that moviegoers gave the film an average grade of A on a scale of F to A+. 130. Comparisons were made between the film and Frankenstein, 1931, Superman, 1978, Blade Runner, Repo Man, 1984, The Terminator, 1984, Aliens, 1986, and the television series Miami Vice. 131-132-133, Decent Thompson of The Washington Post called it a weird but entertaining amalgam of camp style and science fiction. 132, Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times said that its genre could not be easily categorized, recognizing broad conventions of thrillers, slapstick comedy, romance, social satire, and philosophy. 134, Carrie Rickett said the film portrays a distinct futuristic vision of Detroit in the same way Blade Runner did for Los Angeles. 131, writing for the New York Times, Janet Maslin said the film evoked the futuristic tone of Blade Runner and the masculinity of classic Western film. 114. Some saw RoboCop as a self-aware comic book film for adults that combined extreme violence with humor and technology. 135-136, Maslin appreciated that the film takes place on a relatively small scale with a big imagination and a powerful sense of purpose. 114, Michael Wilmington of the Los Angeles Times found it surprisingly clever, unlike other boneheaded action films, offering both humor and cynicism. 136, Ebert concurred, saying that unlike predictable fare of the thriller genre, RoboCop offered something different. 134, and Pat Graham of the Chicago Reader labeled it creepy but stylish. 137, David Sterrett of the Christian Science Monitor praised Verhoeven's skillful direction and razor-sharp social satire. 138, Time Out's review said Verhoeven's blend of comic book and snuff film was fast-paced, violent, and funny. 139, Wilmington found the direction exhilarating, and Kempley said that Verhoeven had delivered a smart, darkly comic, and savage film, which in other hands might simply have been a fast-paced action film. 136-133, in contrast, Dave Kerr of the Chicago Tribune wrote it was over-directed and lacking intention or momentum. He concluded that Verhoeven's European filmmaking style was different but lacked any rhythm. 140. A black and white photograph of Nancy Allen in 1984. Variety's review highlighted Nancy Allen, pictured in 1984, for providing the only human warmth in RoboCop. Rita Kempley, also of The Washington Post, described Weller's RoboCop as the best turn since Schwarzenegger in The Terminator, praising Weller's ability to convey chivalry and vulnerability in a physically limited role. She concluded he offered a certain beauty and grace that added a mythic quality, making his murder even more horrible. 133. Ebert was impressed by Weller's ability to elicit sympathy despite a bulky costume. 134. Conversely, Gran said that Weller hardly registered behind the mask and Verhoeven, normally adept at portraying the sleazily psychological through physicality, had failed to utilize RoboCop's Aryan blandness. 137. Variety's review highlighted Nancy Allen for providing the only human warmth in the film, and Kurtwood Smith as a well-cast sicko-sadist. 135. Reviews discussed the film's violent content. 138, 131, 136, 140, 141. Ebert found ED 209 killing an executive to be very funny, contrasting it with the Charlie Chaplin silent film Modern Times, 1936, which finds humor in applying logic to a situation where it is irrelevant. He said the scene subverts expectations and puts the audience off guard because they no longer know what type of film they are watching. 134. Wilmington found the violence to be presented with a comic lunacy that created experiences of sadism and poignancy in a single scene. 136. Ricketts said the violence made the Terminator seem like Bambi, 1942. 131. Other reviewers were more critical, 141, including Kerr, who found it disturbing that the film drew comedy from extreme violence. He believed following the violence with a sarcastic remark to provide the audience with relief was a mechanical and underhanded way to elicit audience emotions. 140. Walter Goodman said the story about corrupt corporations served as a thin excuse for violence. 141. Wilmington said the violence would offend many, but was justified by the modern Nazitic generic cliches it tears up. 136. Gran found the violence had a brooding agonized quality. As if Verhoeven were both appalled and fascinated by it. 137. Starrett said that critical praise for the nasty film demonstrated a preference for style over substance. 138. Wilmington enjoyed how the satire transformed a cliché revenge story by making the protagonist a machine that keeps succumbing to humanity, emotion, and idealism. He said it was good to see a fable about a decent hero fighting back against corruption, villains, and the theft of his humanity. 136. Thompson said the film works because it takes a classic take of the tragic hero in search of redemption, and adds a science fiction element. 132. And Ricketts said that RoboCop's victory is satisfying because he has both technology and morality on his side. 131. Kerr said that the satire of corporations was the film's most successful effort, depicting unchecked greed and callous disregard. 140. Kempley praised Neumeyer's and Miner's portrayal of corporate villains and street-level criminals as interchangeable, complemented by understated dialogue and clever criticisms of various subjects, including game shows and military culture. 133. Kempley agreed that the film's heart is the story of Murphy regaining his humanity, but action fans less interested in depth could still enjoy the effects and stunts. She concluded that with all our flesh and blood heroes failing us, from brokers to ballplayers, we need a man of metal, a real straight shooter who doesn't fool around with Phi Beta Kappas and never puts anything up his nose. What this world needs is RoboCop. 133. Accolades. RoboCop received one award at the 1988 Academy Awards, Special Achievement for Best Sound Editing, Stephen Flick and John Pouspiciel. The film received 2 other nominations, Best Film Editing for Frank J. Uriosti, losing to Gabriella Cristiani for the drama film The Last Emperor, and Best Sound for Michael J. Coet, Carlos Delarios, Aaron Rochin, and Robert Wald, losing to Bill Rowe and Ivan Sherrick for The Last Emperor. 142. At the 42nd British Academy Film Awards, RoboCop received 2 nominations, Best Makeup and Hair for Carla Palmer, losing to Fabrizio Sforza for The Last Emperor, and Best Special Visual Effects for Botan Tippett, Karan,